Hi again. This is our third part of rhetorical considerations, and I saved it for last because it's a little more complex. But once you understand it, you realize that you knew all of this information already. It's just maybe never been articulated in a way that you had to think about. Okay, this is rhetorical considerations of genre. Now, genre is just a nice French word that kind of means kind or type. Like if I say, what genre of movie do you like? Then, is it mystery? Is it romance? Is it comedy, action? That's the answer to that question. So there are many, many different genres of writing, and each genre has specific characteristics that we associate with identifying that kind of writing. For example, poetry is a form of writing. It has specific characteristics of its genre, and even within its genre, that are different from, say, a newspaper article or prose writing. You can usually tell the difference just visually, looking at them, how it's laid out on the page. That's one characteristic that identifies each, okay? For example, a memo does not look the same or is organized the same or has the same grammatical characteristics associated with it as, say, does a technical manual. An experiment that you write up for a chemistry lab report does not look the same or have the same concerns or characteristics as does a diary entry, okay? Some of the characteristics are divided into formal and informal. That affects both the tone, that affects the wording, the grammar, the organization. And again, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. It's just normally we don't think about what are the characteristics that we associate with each kind of writing. And there are tons of different kinds of writing. So when doing a rhetorical analysis for genre, you're looking in the story for different kinds of writing, and you're analyzing to see how is this writer and why is this writer using these different kinds of writing, and to what effect. Okay, so if you haven't already and you decide to, you can go to the link I provided in the course map to a short story by Edgar Allan Poe called The Facts in the Case of Monsieur Voldemort. Okay, not Voldemort, not the Harry Potter guy. But if you haven't read that and you want to, go ahead and pause the video here, and I'll give you a chance to come back, and then we're going to talk about rhetorical considerations of genre. Okay? I'm going to pause right here. Okay, and we're back. Hope you enjoyed the story. It's a creepy little story. It's technically one of the first or the first zombie stories ever written. But now let's concern ourselves with genre. One of the first things, and I don't know how it's going to show up here, but if you look at just the title, you have the genre of a case. Whether it's a criminal case, we usually associate that, and it says the facts in the case. So by presenting this as a case report, a kind of writing, a genre of writing, and associating it with that word facts, the goal is for Edgar Allan Poe to convince his readers that what you're about to read really happened. These are factual events in a case report with the police, the hospital, whoever the report was made by. Okay, it never happened. And if you read the story and get to the end, you're glad that it never happened because it's a creepy little ending, as is, typical for Edgar Allan Poe stories. But it starts from the very title. He's using genre to manipulate the reader to see his story as something that actually happened. Okay, some other examples in here. He uses a fake book title to talk about the character Monsieur Voldemort. about how he was an important person who was listed in this book of kind of like who's who biblioteca. And even that was made up, but he's using that to create, belief that this was a real person, again, because he obviously was mentioned in this book that doesn't exist, but you don't know that when you're reading it probably for the first time. So again, he's using a different genre, sort of an a biography of someone to show not only did this really happen, it happened because this was a real person. And you see that even on the first page. Second page, right there, I don't know if you can see it here, but highlighted in green is the inclusion of a letter written by Mr. Valdemar, asking this narrator, who we only know as P, to come and hypnotize him, right? So by including that letter, another genre of writing, another form of writing, it again adds that verisimilitude, that sense of, oh, this had to happen because here's a letter that he's included. He doesn't just tell you what the letter said, he actually puts it in the format of a note of a letter, right? Later on in the text, they talk about journal entries. There are notes taken by the doctors. So all of these different kinds of writing used in succession culminate to help convince people that the events of this story really happened. He even starts off talking about, it doesn't surprise me that, the people who have heard about this story realize the horrible, rumors that have gone around. I understand. So I'm here to set it straight and tell you the facts of the case. A case that never happened. But when the story came out, many people believed it really happened because the narrator of the story, who's identified as P, Edgar Allan Poe, they thought he was literally reporting, and he worked for newspapers too and magazines. So the fact that they thought he was just reporting something that really happened. Another thing that he does is there's a lot of medical jargon, a lot of medical terms that help convince us that obviously he talked to doctors to be able to describe, the events in medical terms. He could have just described it in, it was really gross. Instead, he talks about putrefaction. I mean, what was some of the other words? This ossification. He uses these big words that you have to look up, but he does it for a reason. Writers write. They try to manipulate the reader. I mean, if you find yourself laughing, you've been manipulated. If you find yourself reading something and you're crying in sympathy or empathy for the characters, you've been manipulated. The writer's done their job, if that was their goal. So when analyzing for genre, you're looking at different kinds of writing in the story that are being used, and then asking yourself, to what effect, to what reason and purpose is the writer using this particular genre? And when you do your analysis of Once Upon a Time, I'll go ahead and tell you, she's using the genre of fairy tales in a very specific way and for a very specific reason. I'm not going to say any more, but one thing you can do is look through that story and find all the little nods to fairy tales that she uses, which is funny because in the beginning, the first part of the story, she basically says, I don't write children's stories. So then one of her specific audiences obviously isn't children, which is the usual intended audience for fairy tales. So I'm not going to say any more because I want you to be able to enjoy discovering all these little keys in the story and figure out what purpose she puts them in there for, okay? So genre is both easy to understand and a little confusing when you're analyzing for it. So if you have any questions, let me know. Watch the video as many times as you need to understand it, and good luck on your assignment analyzing for rhetorical considerations.